Dealing with heavy vehicle access requests is a very challenging area for local government, I think. There's a couple of key things that I think are particularly difficult. One, we've seen a real rise in the actual volume of applications around heavy vehicle access. There's two particular aspects to that. One is PBS vehicles, which are performance-based standard vehicles. Now, these are vehicles that are optimised for the particular freight task that they're intended for. And we're seeing that more and more. We're getting more of those sorts of vehicles that are really wanting access to try and optimise their freight task job. And so, yeah, the application numbers have gone up. Also, oversize over mass is also another significant area where we're getting more and more applications in this particular field. And those vehicles target more larger scale movements of items that are perhaps non-divisible. And so the idea that items can be manufactured somewhere away from where they're installed and then transported to the site. And so that's becoming more and more prevalent. So both of those issues are leading to a quite a significant increase in the volume of applications that councils are getting. And I think also the second thing that I think is particularly an issue for local road agencies is also just the staff capability to assess not only the volume of applications, but also to technically assess the applications and whether it's safe for those sorts of vehicles to travel on their road network. And I think that whole challenge of understanding the ins and outs is quite a difficult space. Bridge engineering is quite a technical field, and I guess most councils don't necessarily have that level of technical expertise. Now, that occurs for a few reasons. Like, one is, structural engineers are generally fairly specialised, and they're also quite expensive. And I think that in the case of local government, often it's pretty difficult to justify putting on someone with those sort of skills, because actually the volume of work that they would normally have to do in a council isn't enough to justify a full-time position. So I think that we see a situation where often we don't have those skills available necessarily on staff. Well, I think that structural engineering is a very technically specific discipline. There are simplified methods that we can employ to assess heavy vehicle access in a competent way that really brings good quality decision making to the fingertips of personnel in local government. I don't think you necessarily need to have a formal education in structural engineering to be able to do this kind of work, as long as you get the right training and understand where the limitations are of some of these simpler methods. I guess the key here really is to understand how to undertake these simplified vehicle assessments, and what are the sorts of processes that we need to employ to be able to do it in a competent and valid manner. So key to that is knowing and understanding the limitations and the constraints associated with what you're doing, and then knowing when you're starting to slip outside the bounds of when that methodology is valid. And so when you do start to move outside the scope of those sorts of simplified analysis, well, how do you get help, and how do you procure services that perhaps provide you the answers that you need, but then also make sure that that feeds back into the simplified decision-making process that you would be commonly using in access assessment. Well, I guess IPWEA-Q is all about capacity, capability, and skill development. Currently, we're in a process of developing a range of courses in the field of bridge management. And of particular note, related to what we're talking about here today, is the upcoming workshop that we have on assessing heavy vehicle access to bridges. So in this course, we cover the basic processes that you use to do these simplified assessments. We cover an overview of the assessment landscape within Australia and how all the tiers of assessment fit together. We cover what sort of information that you need to be able to do this kind of simplified assessment. And we also cover, once you're outside of the particular, bounds of that assessment, well, what you can do there, how you can procure consultants to help you with that work, but then how to make sure that information can be fed back into your, standardised processes. What this course also does is provide you an opportunity to really engage and network with other people that are faced with the same situation. So So at IPWEA-Q, our core focus is really providing those networks and those communities of practice so that we can help each other out. What's really important is that we can make good access decisions that, one, really support our local communities in terms of the productivity of communities. This is a key thing for most local governments, supporting local productivity, and that's what these sorts of applications are really critical for. So I think that's a really important thing that comes out of it. Also, I think that as a community in councils, we need to make sure that we're keeping our networks safe, and that we're making access decisions that, while it's supporting productivity, we're also making sure that nothing really goes wrong on our networks. So we need to operate the networks in a safe and efficient manner. And really the key to that is to knowing the basics around heavy vehicle access, and so that we can make decisions that are sound and based on a solid technical foundation. So I'd strongly encourage anyone who has to make decisions in this particular area to come along, come and meet some of your fellow colleagues that have also the same sort of issues that they have to deal with, and let's find out more about how we can create strategies around making good access decisions.